Oh, yeah, Mikey, you're introing us.
Okay, I mean, do I have a choice? Because this topic we're going to be talking about on our podcast today is free will. Does anyone have a choice in anything, or is everything predetermined? A lot of people might say science can predict how planets are going to move. Well, and then can it predict how brains are going to react to things? If so, isn't all external stimuli already going to have a predetermined result in our brains? Others might say, yes, but we have a free transcendental will to do our own things. People choose to do this, people choose to do that. Well, if I punch you, is that proof I have free will? Or is it just proof that I was predetermined to punch you when we got into this argument? We're going to talk about it today.
Yes, that is the topic of discussion here at MVC Podcasts. So maybe we'll just start off with a smaller question. Can we define those two terms, Chalice? Can we define something that's predetermined? Can we define free will? I think that's a good base, and then we would be able to build off of that.
Yeah,
So let's go.
That's a great question because it's like almost what's the difference? I mean, at a basic level, what's the difference between free will and if it's determined? The decisions you make you choose doesn't are the decisions you choose. I guess in this discussion, we basically defining free will as you as a person get to react to your to the external world and make decisions. And predetermined would be that you have no choice in the matter. Whatever, everything in the past and present and future is basically all the same. It's just one long story that has already been predetermined by the way that life has been set up.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a very solid definition, straight out of Britannica. But on the other hand, I'm a man of middle water, if you will. So I like to take the middle ground, and I think if we're going to start if we're looking at human X, okay, who's going to be our subject for today, I think there is a level of predetermined future for this person, for the reason that the socioeconomic status the person's given on birth, what their parents do, and I think the parents have an extreme influence on the future of that child. So I think there's some sort of a predetermined thing that if the parents have something in their minds that they want their kids to complete, or like if they're born into poverty, or if they're born into middle class or upper class, like there's going to be some level that their future will have to take a certain path. Obviously, I'm a big believer on free will, and I think that everyone can make their own decisions. And you could start with nothing and become the greatest. We've seen that with for example, like phenomenal sport athletes. So yeah, so I think there's a certain level, but I want to I think the core that there's going to be 30 to 40% predetermined.
That's really interesting, Nick, because I completely disagree with you.
Interesting.
So, which is it is interesting because you and I usually agree on things, but I think that everything is determined in the sense of everything in the real world. So, with your example of somebody coming from nothing and then becoming, say, the greatest basketball player in the league, say LeBron James, you could argue that by him coming from poverty, as in the causation of him having the determination to become a great basketball player, would you then say that he had free will, or would you say that the certain parameters around his life that were molded for him before he was born pretty much determined him on becoming the greatest basketball player ever? Which is a debated topic, but
yeah, I'm not too sure. I think some people are in better places than others, but I think it's all comes down to personality, and just some of these great athletes, especially LeBron, early on in his career, man, he was a grinder. You saw that he really wanted it, and he always pushed to be the best. And there's that mentality that he's fighting an uphill battle, coming from some of the struggles he had early on, but he persevered right through those. And even now, as a successful athlete, why I'm going to bring back that I think your future is is a mix. I think there's some free will in there because like even as a successful career, like he's chosen to, switch teams. He's chosen to open up like this great school in Akron, like that. Like he could have taken routes of other people where they don't need to do this stuff. Like it wasn't a necessary action, but I think there's some sort of personal decision that goes into that. But I think there is a base, like his personality and maybe some of the stuff that he believed and worked for was driven by maybe his father or like some sort of mentor, right? So I think it's predetermined in that case, but I think there's a lot of variability that is up to the person themselves. Chalice?
So I'm just trying to, so Matt, would you say that if I gave you every piece of information in the universe and then a computing power that was powerful enough to process all of it and the correct amount of like algorithms and such that you could understand all the laws of physics that have been discovered and that have yet to be discovered, etc., you could determine what anything and anyone was going to do at any one time in the future?
Well, yeah, I mean, what you just described is like Laplace's demon. I mean, like if you're able to break Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, in essence, you're able to pretty much determine anything from the past, present, and future. So yeah.
Okay, but surely like if you think about in like terms of quantum mechanics, there's certain like things that are unpredictable. There's a randomness to it that can't be predicted by science.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, like what I said before, Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Like we're not able to determine the position of an electron, and also the velocity. We can only know one or the other.
Yeah. So so you think that it's possible for that to both be known at the same time?
Okay. Well, obviously I don't know this, but I mean, like if you're describing a Laplace's demon, since they know everything, as in like if you're able to use the equations from physics and all that type of stuff to pretty much compute whatever you want, I would say that you're able to come within amount of uncertainty to say that, yeah, you could, like your calculations will be able to come down to such a small uncertainty that you would be able to kind of distinguish both position and velocity. But
You
I
wouldn't
don't
100% certainty, or would you? Because if you do think that, then I mean, it's a little bit different. But if you admit that is even the slightest bit of probability that can't be perfectly determined, because it's entirely possible. For example, as you say that there's certain facts about electrons that it's impossible to know. Then if you extrapolate from the beginning of the universe, 14 billion years ago or whatever it may be, to 6,000, 14 billion, whatever it may be, to today, and you extrapolate all of those small little uncalculatable changes, it can amount to a massive discrepancy in the current existence of how the world works and how the universe is. So wouldn't that be the range with which you would not be able to predict the future, aka the range with which we react in terms of free will?
Okay, so I disagree with you on the fact that you're colliding both uncertainty with free will. I wouldn't put free will and uncertainty in the same category, because like free will, at least how I see it, isn't based on the probability of an electron. It's like randomness and free will aren't the same thing. For example, if I say that I'm going to decide to grab a piece of pizza or eat a bagel for breakfast tomorrow, and I flip a coin, you can argue that's random, but at the same time, that was already determined by the coin, as in what I flipped was already going to be determined. So like, even though that's random, that's not free will, if that makes sense.
But on the same thing, I think everything you could plot on a bell curve. Okay, there's always going to be those tail ends, right? You're always going to have, okay, yeah, you might have a 99% confidence interval, okay, but there's always going to be that level of uncertainty. And I think with your example, like, I don't think the coin predetermined. I think you flip the coin, so you act on the coin, as in you could use more force or less force, which might push it to a tails or a head. So the coin isn't predetermined to land on heads. And also, like, your decision to even choose which breakfast to have is like, that's just like literally the definition of free will that Mikey described early on. So
Well, yeah, but like what I'm trying to get at is that everything stems from causation, which is the premise of determinism. Like by like even us picking this topic, we picked this topic based on something else putting the thought into our heads, as in like our brains take in stimulation from the outside world, and we then create those like we process that information, and we then create our own information, which create our own thoughts, which then we then constitute as free will, but still we are able to pretty much jump back and go back to the beginning of where that first where that like first causation happened. I'm not really explaining it that well, but like if that makes sense at all.
I don't know. I still think like even on that instance, like the environment around you that influenced you even have that thought, that environment is ever changing, and the way your brain picks up on certain perceptions is not always consistent. So I don't know. I that's where I'm taking it. But you know, this is why this topic is unknown. There's no right answer because everyone can have different opinions.
So when we think about the brain, or when we think about decisions, obviously we recognize the decisions don't stem from my hand. My hand doesn't decide to roll a dice. My brain decides to have my hand roll the dice. So at the end of the day, I think we're asking the question of, is the chemical interactions and the synapses and reactions that happen within the brain all predetermined or not? And I would say it's almost one and the same. If you think about it, you're saying, no, it's predetermined because the decisions your brain makes are are the decisions that your brain makes already. But you are your brain. You are who your brain is. So you're the one making those decisions, whether it be predetermined or not. You're still the one who's like, if you think it's predetermined, then you're arguing the entire universe is predetermined. And in that case, your brain is merely a smaller part of a small part of a large cosmic being. But in that sense, you're still the one making the decisions. Like, it's still your brain. It doesn't matter whether it's predetermined or not. We have no way of knowing the future. So
Yeah, Chalice, I'm in your corner at this point. So any other, Matt, do you have anything else to say? Or is there another area of this that we want to discuss that we're missing?
I was going to ask you guys, let's assume that Matt is right and that everything is predetermined. Then what's the point? What's the point of anything? Why not either one go kill myself? Or because it's predetermined that I would kill myself. Or two, why don't I just go do heroin because I know I'll enjoy it, you know? If everything's predetermined, why not get the pleasure that I can out of this world while it's still here?
Okay, so so going back to when I said I believe in determinism, I do in the sense of like interactions with the real world. However, we as a species don't interact with the real world necessarily, as in like we have a lot of social constructs that allow us to kind of go in the abstract, be able to interact with each other in ways that other animals aren't allowed to or able to. So I think the word free will to me is true in the sense of like social interaction and like social infrastructure for like, so like for example, like with Nick, I guess going back to what Nick saying, like becoming a like really good professional athlete, I think that it's determined that you will push yourself to become a like successful person wherever you take that, but you have the decision to go to sports or to become a business person or like something like that. So like it's determined in the realm of where you put your drive or like where you put your decisions, but you're able to take those decisions and put them wherever you want, like the social infrastructure of where we live. If that does that make sense?
So you're more thinking that you're probably more with me then, that you think it's a mix.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't know. I just think that going one way extreme or the other, like I just think you can poke at that and pull it apart, and like you can just bring up different cases that would like nullify that. I think there has to be some level of two, even if there's more one than the other, then that's more of a personal decision maybe on what you think and what happened in your life. But
Yeah. Wait, so Nick, like, do you like, so whenever you think about free will, like, do you also think that it's rooted within like just like our culture, and like when it comes to just like the real world, there is no free will, or do you think it still fluctuates in between both like mediums?
what do you mean by like the real world?
Like me interacting with, I don't know, like going outside and interacting with like nature, or like just like external stimuli.
Mm. What was your question again? Like if I
Like
think that.
like do you think like free will only exists in like more like social interactions with like people and like that type of stuff, or do you think it's also like present in like just like regular external like stimuli, like just like the real world,
Um,
or do you think there's like a fluctuation?
I'm not exactly sure how to answer that, but I think like if you mean real world as in just like nature and stuff, like there's I don't know. I think there's free will with that. I think if anything has some sort of a conscious being that it can decide for itself what it's going to do. Obviously, those decisions are influenced heavily by the environment it's in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're
You still
if
think
you're
there's free will from that, even though it's
yeah,
heavily influenced?
if you're the last fern in a conifer forest, like there's something you have to do as a species to survive, and that's going to be determined by, you know, the situation around you versus if you're the 1,000th fern in a forest. Like obviously you have less pressure. You could probably do some more stuff, and obviously that might be more predetermined. Um, I'm not a biologist, but I just know that if there's some sort of conscious being um, inside of what we're talking about, there's going to be some sort of variability, some sort of decision making that goes on. I don't think it's all in regards to surviving, except like humans are I think humans are a different case in the fact that we, like you mentioned, we have social constructs. We have, you know, a million more factors than some species on like what influences what we do. And
Okay.
those could be predetermined. Like there's
Yeah.
some concrete ability to some of this, but I think a lot of it's fluctuation. So I'm leaning more free will in
Okay.
in regards to your answer.
So
Maybe we
taking
should get
this,
Chalice in here too.
yeah, so Chalice. So taking this on more of a biological standpoint, would you say that evolution is predetermined, or that in a sense has a ability to have like an uncertainty, as you were talking about that earlier?
I mean, I think it's almost been proven that evolution has a level of uncertainty to it. If you look at different creatures evolving, and like if you just look at the evolution of different creatures in different climates, uh, if a species is complete, like if I don't know, let's say we had some island that was not inhabited by man, and there's a species of monkey on it, and then all life got knocked out on it, and it started again on that island, and you give it another couple 100 million years or whatever it may be, then a different species would obviously grow and evolve, because there's some level, like animals fill ecological niches. That's obviously agreed upon, but I don't think that it's necessarily the same type of animal each time that will fill each ecological niche. And those also are dependent upon other factors. And that's what I was talking about to start with. It's almost that butterfly effect of the very small changes in, like the uncertainty on the like molecular, the submolecular, like the atomic level or whatever it may be, the quantum level. Those changes over the course of a long period of time can have drastic changes on existence.
So like kind of playing devil advocate here, in regards to evolution, couldn't we also kind of like, I mean, this is an oversimplification of evolution, but like, couldn't you say that evolution is really just the system of picking the most fit genes to recopulate and just continue that line of genetic code? And if you like could make that simplification, wouldn't you then say that it's kind of predetermined since it's really just going based off that type of system?
I mean, obviously I'm not a geneticist, but I think, I guess axiomatically it is just the weeding out and survival of certain genetics ahead of others, and that like the slow mutation of cells towards different creatures that fill ecological niches better than others. But I don't know like if that necessarily means it's predetermined, because I mean, I think about it like this: a movie, if I go sit down and watch a movie, that's predetermined because the ending has already been determined. However, if I sit down and play a video game, the ending is not predetermined because there's a role that I play. So if we look back in time and replay it again, yes, maybe we could say it's predetermined. But the future, because we have no knowledge of it and we can't determine what will happen, is not predetermined by definition.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I had something else I wanted to ask, but I forgot now.
Yeah, I just think that that last point that Mikey brought up, just the whole point of the future being unknown to us, and then it just really, I think it just brings it back to the species itself or the person that's being afflicted by that. It's that future decision, right? It's like whatever. Obviously this could go so many different ways. Like now I'm thinking of like, goals that you set for yourself, right? You want to be this in the future, but the path is not the same for everyone. If the path to an engineer was the same, then I would say, yeah, it's predetermined, or everyone who fits these XYZ traits is going to be a mathematician. But I think, things change. Even the fact that you can like switch majors, like I think that's like, that could also be like free will. So I don't know, man. There's so many different things that could go into this in my mind.
The way I think about it is that, like I was saying before, that analogy of a movie or a video game. I guess there's three ways you could kind of look at it. You could look at it, one, life is a movie. Everything's predetermined. This is like the absolute one end of the spectrum. Like right over here, everything was figured out. Your life, where you're going to die, how it's going to happen, everything's already determined. In that case, you have no knowledge of the future. Why not go ahead and live your life the best you can, however you would want to live it, so that you would most enjoy the movie, which in essence is what we do with our lives anyway. We try to live the best life we can based on our preferences.
Mm-hmm.
The second take is it's a video game. This is what we've kind of been talking about, and I think it's what we've settled on. It's like, yeah, 30-40% of it is settled, like maybe 60, 70, whatever you want to argue about the semantics of or the minutia of it. And yeah, there's a closed world map. You can't go to Jupiter tomorrow if you want. But within the video game, you do have certain options. So why not live the best life you can to try to enjoy the video game to the greatest degree you can? So you live the same life as you are now and as you would be whether it was a movie or video game or how we treat it now. The third option is you could say, who I am, it's predetermined in the sense that who I am makes the decisions that I will make. So it's only predetermined in essence of you make decisions that you would make because you are you. So it's predetermined in that you're you. So it's not really predetermined, I guess. And in that case, the worst you could argue is I have no control over anybody else. So I have no clue what they're thinking and feeling. However, why not still act in the best interests of the life that you want to lead? And hopefully that takes into account the feelings of other people. And in that sense, why not try to live the best life possible, which is what you'd be doing in the other three options anyway. So I think that although it's really fun and sometimes scary to talk about this topic, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because no matter what, you're going to try to live the best life possible. Because even if you assume it's completely predetermined, why not try to enjoy yourself and make everyone else's movie a little bit better?
Wow, that was great, Mikey.
Yeah, I think that's I don't think anything else can top that. I think that's a great place to end it. Unless anyone has any final remarks. No?
Giannis, I think, is probably better than LeBron, but
Okay. I wouldn't say that, but
I wouldn't say that either. But
I mean,
Harden, baby. Best player in the league. No, I'm kidding. But from all of us at MVC Podcasts, thank you for listening. and we'll be in the lab cooking up a new topic for you every week. So, make sure you leave a like and a comment down below what you want to hear next, or engage us in a conversation, poke Mikey, poke the bear. Okay. Grab the bull by the horns. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.